In 1952, a man named John Woodward felt a slight tickle in his throat. It was a Tuesday. By Thursday, he couldn't stand up. By Sunday, he was dead. The doctor called it gastric enteritis, a fancy word for a stomach bug that turned lethal. Everyone at the funeral looked at his widow, Roberta, and saw a woman shattered. They saw her holding a damp handkerchief, her eyes red from weeping. They saw a woman who hadn't left his bedside for 72 hours. What they didn't see was the small white paper packet hidden in the back of her pantry. They didn't see the $500 insurance check she was already mentally cashing, and they definitely didn't see the 5 other men she had already buried in exactly the same way. To understand how Roberta Elder got away with it, you have to understand Atlanta in the 50s. This wasn't the era of Ring doorbells and background checks. This was the era of the front porch. If you lived on Auburn Avenue or in the surrounding black communities, survival was a collective effort. Trust wasn't a luxury, it was the currency. When a husband died, the neighbors didn't call for a private investigator, they brought a casserole. And nobody brought a better casserole than Roberta. She was what they called a professional neighbor. She had this way of moving into your life, not like an intruder, but like a piece of furniture you didn't know you were missing. She was soft-spoken. She wore clean, pressed dresses. She was the person you called when the world was falling apart. This is the psychological glitch Roberta exploited: proximity. When someone is 6 inches from your face, whispering that everything is going to be okay while they stir a glass of water for you, your brain literally cannot process them as a threat. We are biologically wired to trust the hand that feeds us. But Roberta knew a secret that the ancient Borgias knew centuries before her. Control doesn't require a gun, it just requires a spoon. And in the 1950s, a spoon filled with medicine was the most dangerous weapon in Georgia. Meet Reverend William Elder, a man of stature, a man whose voice could shake the rafters of a church. When he married Roberta, he thought he'd found a helpmate for his ministry. He didn't know he'd signed his own death warrant. It didn't happen all at once. That's the genius of a slow poisoner. If you drop dead after 1 sip, there's an investigation. But if you die over 3 weeks, that's just a tragic illness. It starts with a metallic taste, a strange copper tang on the back of the tongue. The Reverend mentions it, and Roberta smiles. "It's just the bile, honey. You need to settle your stomach." She brings him a glass of milk. It's cool, it's creamy. It's laced with 300 milligrams of arsenic trioxide. In the 1950s, doctors called arsenic the great mimicker. Why? Because it doesn't look like a poisoning, it looks like life falling apart. Arsenic is a cellular saboteur. It enters your body and mimics phosphate, a chemical your cells need to produce energy. It tricks your mitochondria, the power plants of your cells, into taking it in. Once inside, it shuts down the power. Your body reacts with projected vomiting. Your skin crawls. Then comes the Mies lines, white bands across the fingernails where the body tried to push the toxin out. To a doctor in 1952, this looked like severe dehydration. It looked like the flu. It looked like a dozen other things. Roberta knew the doctors were looking for a disease, so she gave them a performance. This is the most terrifying part of the Roberta Elder story. She wasn't hiding in the shadows, she was center stage. When the doctor arrived at the Elder home, he didn't see a killer. He saw a saintly wife who hadn't slept in days. He saw a woman who kept a detailed log of the Reverend's symptoms. "He can't keep anything down, doctor. I've tried the broth, I've tried the tea." By providing the evidence of his decline, she directed the diagnosis. She led the doctor by the hand toward the wrong conclusion. And because she was a black woman in a segregated South, the white medical establishment barely looked twice at her husband's natural passing. They didn't see a crime scene, they saw a statistic. Most serial killers have a type, a preference, but for Roberta Elder, the type was anyone with a signature and a pulse. After the Reverend was laid at rest, the house didn't grow quiet, it grew hungry. She didn't leave the Elder home, she stayed to care for his children from a previous marriage, Annie Pearl and Fannie Mae. To the neighbors, this was the ultimate act of grace, a stepmother staying to raise children that weren't her own. She was a saint in a Sunday hat. But in Roberta's world, these children weren't family, they were walking bank accounts, and the withdrawal started at the dinner table. Let's talk about the industrial policy. In the 1950s, insurance agents walked door to door in neighborhoods like this. You paid 10 cents, 20 cents a week. It was burial insurance. Roberta was obsessed with them. She didn't just have one policy on her family members, she had several. Tiny amounts that added up to a windfall. But there's a catch with insurance. You can't collect until someone stops breathing. Annie Pearl, just a teenager, started feeling that familiar stomach bug. Then Fannie Mae, then a cousin who came to visit. The house became a rolling door of sickness. While the girls lay in bed, their hair falling out in clumps, a classic sign of chronic arsenic poisoning, Roberta was sitting at the kitchen table, meticulously filing her claims. This is where the story crosses a line that even the most hardened true crime followers find difficult to stomach. Most people can imagine a spouse killing for money, but a mother figure poisoning children? It was the frequency that finally started to grate against the silence of the community. In less than a year, the Elder name was appearing on death certificates with a terrifying regularity. 1 death is a tragedy, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern. The neighbors started to notice that whenever Roberta nursed someone, they didn't get better, they withered, they turned into husks, and yet no one spoke up. Why? Because Roberta was the one who brought the flowers. She was the one who organized the wakes. How do you accuse the person holding the shovel of being the one who dug the grave? In the world of 1953, human intuition can be fooled by a crying woman. But spreadsheets? Spreadsheets don't have hearts. They only have data. An auditor at the insurance company noticed a statistical anomaly that was impossible to ignore. Roberta Elder wasn't just unlucky, she was a mathematical impossibility. 1 beneficiary, 3 different husbands, 2 stepchildren, all dead of stomach ailments within a decade. The company didn't call a doctor, they called the police. And when the Atlanta detectives started looking into Roberta's past, they didn't just find a trail of grief, they found a trail of graveyards stretching back to the 1930s. To catch Roberta, the police had to do the one thing the community feared most. They had to disturb the dead. They ordered the exhumation of Annie Pearl and Fannie Mae Elder. This is the moment Roberta's perfect crime fell apart. She chose arsenic because it mimics a natural death while the victim is alive, but she forgot one crucial detail. Arsenic is an element. It is the immortal poison. While the rest of the body turns to dust, arsenic stays. It migrates into the hair. It settles into the bones. It waits. When the toxicologist opened the remains of those young girls, he didn't find a virus. He found enough white arsenic to kill a small army. The girls hadn't died of a bug. They had been seasoned with death for months. When the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Roberta didn't break. She didn't confess. She played the part of the persecuted Christian woman. She looked at the detectives with those same eyes that had watched her husband's gasp for air and asked, "Why are you doing this to a poor widow?" But the police had more than just the bodies. They found the receipts. They found the local drugstores where she had purchased rat poison in quantities that could have cleared out every warehouse in Georgia. There were no rats in Roberta's house, just people she no longer had a use for. In December 1953, The angel of Auburn Avenue finally had to answer to a judge. The prosecution didn't just bring witnesses, they brought jars. Jars containing the preserved organs of her victims, glowing with the metallic signature of her malice. Roberta sat there in a floral hat and white gloves. She didn't look like a killer. She looked like she was waiting for a church service to begin. Her defense was simple. I loved them. I cared for them. God took them. But then the prosecution called the insurance agents. One by one, they stood up and read the dates. The dates Roberta had taken out the policies, the dates she had paid the premiums, and the dates, often just weeks later, that she had come to collect. The math of murder was finally written in black and white. The jury didn't take long. In a time and place where the lives of black citizens were often
dismissed by the legal system, the evidence against Roberta was so overwhelming that it demanded justice. She was found guilty of the murder of Annie Pearl Elder. She was sentenced to life in prison. As she was led away in chains, she didn't scream, she didn't beg. She simply looked at the gallery and whispered something that froze the blood of everyone who heard it. She claimed she had only done what was necessary. But necessary for what? For a $500 check? Or for the feeling of holding a life in the palm of her hand and watching it flicker out, one spoonful at a time? Roberta Elder died in prison in 1967. She took the true number of her victims to her own grave. Some say it was 5. Others, looking at the unexplained deaths in every house she ever lived in, say it was 14. We like to tell ourselves that we are smarter now, that we have DNA and digital records and a healthy sense of suspicion. But the story of Roberta Elder isn't about the 1950s. It's about the human heart. We still need caregivers. We still need neighbors. We still need to trust. And that is the terrifying reality. Trust is a door. Most people use it to let love in. But people like Roberta, they use it to walk in quietly, sit by your bed, and wait for you to get thirsty. So tonight, when someone you love brings you a glass of water, when they tell you to just rest, when they offer you a spoon of medicine to make the pain go away, remember Roberta. Because sometimes the person standing right in front of you is the last person you'll ever see. What do you think Roberta's true motive was? Was it the money, or was it the power of being the only one who could help? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to see more stories of the shadows hiding in plain sight, subscribe. We'll be waiting.